The setting of this video is, of course, kind of unusual, and that is because we're going to try out some chess today. This is a old chess set that I have since I was like 12, I think, or 13, and we'll just try out what sounds it makes. Of course, at first there's the chessboard itself. But then there's of course also the chess pieces, and I want to say this beforehand, there's one piece missing, which is one of the black knights. But other than that, of course, everything is here. And if you haven't played chess yet, ever, because it had a craze, it's huge in the last few days, so if you haven't played it yet, don't worry, this will be an absolute beginner thing, and we're focusing this on making good sounds, okay? Good sounds, mainly. It's about good sounds. I don't think the pieces themselves make them, but we'll try them on the board a bit, so let's first take them all out. Now, of course, the black pieces, because every good chess game needs two players, would be kind of pointless otherwise, wouldn't it? Okay, as you can see, some of these pieces already don't have there's a magnet inside, and the board is magnetic. I think some of the pieces already lost theirs, because as I said, it's kind of an old chess set. Okay. Let's put the board down, and I want to preface this with saying I'm not that good at chess, just telling you that, but it should be enough to tell you how to play it. So, this is of course the chessboard itself, and then let's put down the king. In this simulation, we'll say that I am white, okay, and you are black. So we put down the king, who goes on your right space, okay, the middle two spaces, and you choose the right one, and it has to be the opposite color. The king is of course the most important piece. It goes in the middle, and it goes to the right of the middle on an opposite colored piece, opposite colored square, and then you have the queen. My camera won't focus on it, but you have the queen, which goes next to the king, perfectly next to them, because of course that's a pair. The queen and king always go together. Next you have these two boys. I just forgot the English name. They are this is embarrassing, so let's just forget them for a second and let's go over to the two little horses. Now these are supposed to be horses. They go down on the next two spaces. I'm still struggling to name them, but they're of course the when we get to it. And then in front of all these, we have a row of pawns. Oh, I remember. They are bishops and these are knights, okay? But we call them horses because they are horses. Okay, and then the other side, you have to set up your pieces exactly the same. The king to your right. Not to your right though, to your left. Now, I was a bit confused there, but the king has to be to your left because the king faces the other king. And then you can put all the pawns in front because it really doesn't matter in which order you put them all down. This is one of the pawns. One of the pawns that has this magnet out. Then of course the two bishops, the knights, but we only have one, and the two rooks. And now, as a substitute for the knight, we have a little elephant. Because, as I said, it's missing. Okay, now this is the standard chessboard, as you will see it at the beginning of most games. When you face a more skilled player than you are, for example, you can remove a few pieces. For example, you can remove the queen. Against a very skilled player, you can remove other pieces like a knight or a bishop. But you're really good at chess, aren't you? So maybe you should remove the knight or the elephant. Okay, so this is the beginning of the game. Usually, you see moves like this, or like this. That's a very standard move. You have to remember, white always moves first. White always moves first. There is a saying in German that white moves first but black wins, but that doesn't work in English. But white always goes first. So, why don't we start with a very, very standard opening? This. And if you know a bit of chess, but really only a little, you will know that the pawn usually can only move up one space at a time, one square at a time. But there is an exception where the rook is allowed 2 spaces if he has yet to be moved. So if this little pawn, of course not rook, this little pawn has never been moved before, it can move 2 spaces. Okay. Other than that, you can only walk 1. And if you encounter an enemy, in this example this is a pawn, you cannot move the pawn anymore. But if you have an enemy to your right front or the other side, you can then eat up that enemy. Eat up is of course not the right word. Today is not my best grammatical, lexical day, but you can capture the pawn and then this pawn is out of the game. So we'll remove it. And then of course this pawn has to be captured and so on and so forth. But you have to remember, pawns move up by 1 and capture to their side front. So they capture diagonally forwards. Pawns are the only pieces that can never move or capture backwards. They only go straight forward and capture diagonally. Okay, as I said, this is a very standard opening, and it is very often. There's a lot of different options you can do. There's this move. There's this move, of course. There's this. There's this. There's this. There's even this. There's a lot of different openings or first moves that one can play that work, but play the very standard, very standard answer to this move. And then next you have multiple options. Again, you can move the horse because the horse is the only piece that can jump above other pieces, and it always moves 2 to the front and 1 to the side. So it can move 2 to the front and 1 to the side. Remember, 2 to the front, 1 to the side. And that goes in any direction, so you can also go 2 to the side and 1 front. Okay, and if you're here, you can go 2 to the two front, one side, two front, one to the side, two to the front, one to the side, two to the front, one to the side, and so on and so forth. So that's a move we could make. Another possibility is to move another pawn. We could just, for example, do this, which is possible. So if this pawn should ever be captured, this pawn can recapture whatever figure is there then, whatever piece. We can also do this. Move the pawn 2 squares, because it's of course the first move of this pawn, and then it would probably be captured. But now we could recapture with the queen, but we'll get to that. So let's do the most standard move in this position, which is knight up 2 squares and then 1 towards the center. Now with this knight, if you go 2 to the front and 1 to the side in the next move, you could get this pawn. So what black often does is it goes there with the knight to protect this, because now if you capture the pawn, your knight will be captured by the black knight, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to trade a knight for a pawn, so you will usually not attack, and black will move the knight there. It could also move the bishop here, but you will see that relatively little. Most standard move here, this. Now it's white turn again, and what white often does is, as already said, moving the bishop. The bishop is a piece that can move across the board, but it has to stay on the diagonal, so it moves only on the diagonal. You have 2 bishops, and one of them is always on the white squares, and one of them is always on the black squares. That's just how it is. Because, yeah, as I said, they can only move diagonally, and these 2 bishops together can be very, very, very strong. That's their strength. They can work across the field, and the strength of the knights, of the horses, is that they can skip above other pieces, and that way they are kind of seen as of equal value, but that is highly dependent on the situation. So that is a very, very standard move. Next up, we could have the very, very standard bishop move again. Bishop to c5. Now, you have the 2 bishops, you have the 2 knights, one of them attacking, one of them defending, and this is an opening that is called the gioco piano. It's a very, very basic chess opening, and it kind of uses the pieces, let's call them the pieces, use the knight, use the bishop, and what most people, or what is a very common move to do next, is to move the king. Now usually the king can only move 1 square at a time, 1 square at a time, but there is an exception to that. For example, if the king has yet to be moved, same as the pawns, if the king has not moved yet, and also the rook has not moved yet, and there's nothing in between them, and nothing is attacking any space in between them, you can do this. It's called to castle, and that way the king is in relative safety, because of course if you lose the king, you lose the game. So that is a very, very standard opening. Now black can't castle yet, so it will probably develop its horse. Now it's elephant, it's knight. You can do the same, and then you get castles on both sides. This is not really intended to teach you chess fully. If you want to learn chess, you can of course go and look at resources that are online, or you can tell me. I can teach you chess if you want, but you have to tell me. I can make a series of different openings of different moves we can start with, however piece moves, but you have to tell me if you want that. Then let's do that. We can do it weekly, we can do it daily, maybe for a week, really depending on what this is a very, very standard opening, and now it really depends on what happens now. Is the phase where the game really begins, but it's of course not the only opening. There's a lot of other tactics that are played, but I am not too versed in chess theory yet. I know a lot of openings, I kind of know their names broadly, but as I said, I'm not that good of a chess player. I'm half decent, but that's it. So, well, we could, for example, not open with this pawn, but with the other one. And then what you usually get is this as an answer, and then this would be the Queen's Gambit. You have probably heard of the Queen's Gambit before, because that is a popular Netflix show, and what black can do is capture this pawn, and then you get stuff like this. That is possible, but let's not delve into that. Let us not delve into that, because there's way too many openings, and I can't go over too many because the video is already at a good length, if you ask me. So how about we replay the Gioco Piano, and then afterwards we're calling it a day. So the knight in front of the king goes 2 steps and is answered by the pawn in front of the king, of course. The pawn in front of the king goes 2 steps and is answered by the other pawn. You have the horse going 2 steps to the front and 1 to the side, jumping over this pawn, and it is answered by the pawn on the opposite side by black to protect the attack on this pawn. Then you get the bishop into the game, and black does the same, and then white can go, but doesn't have to go. There's also other moves it can play, but let's say we go for castling with white, and that is a very standard opening. There's a lot of other stuff you can do here. You can play this, which is a very popular move. It's called, oh no, let me think. It's a gambit, of course. Is it Stanford Gambit? I'm not quite sure, but this is a move you could play. Another move you could play is maybe this to develop this bishop. You could also play the knight. You could also play the queen, but that's kind of unpopular. And you could, of course, also play other stuff that is more or less good. But, well, this is a very, very simple thought. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can always let me know. If you didn't, please also let me know. I can make more chess videos in the future if you want. If you don't, that's also perfectly fine, because I will continue to play chess. I might play some chess on stream in the near future, but we'll see about that. So, for now, I wish you a Merry Christmas Eve, and I'll see you again tomorrow on Christmas Eve. Thank you so much for watching, and